how to understand the opposite sex.
Honesty, always the best policy. You're saying that it's not.
Should you have sex every time your partner wants it?
I'm sure there are more guys who say yes to this question, but my answer is a firm no.
Why can't men find things?
Scientifically, there is a reason for that.
The questions.
The gynecologist, I'm going to jump right in on there.
The issues.
I would be interested to know why it is that women aren't as skilled drivers as men are.
Even a high-tech brain scan that may put an end to marriage therapy.
So it gives us information that most psychiatrists or psychologists never get.
Understanding the opposite sex.
Why don't men listen?
Men don't have as much of a verbal capacity as women do.
On the doctors.
Doctor, give me the news.
Welcome to the doctors. We have a very special show for you today. As you can see, our entire audience full of couples. So, whether they're newly dating or they've been married for decades, we've invited them here for a very good reason, because today we're going to teach each and every one of you out there how to understand the opposite sex. So obviously I can't do this on my own, so let's call in the troops. Here to offer another male perspective, Dr. Orden. And of course, representing the ladies, Dr. Lisa. And Doctor of Psychology, Dr. Wendy Walsh.
Girl power! Girl power!
Hello, Wendy.
Hello?
Well, let's get right to it and start with this topic that men and women often disagree about. Listen to this question.
Does a man have a right to insist his partner only see a female gynecologist?
Can a guy actually tell a woman who she has to see?
No, he shouldn't.
No.
Again, that goes back to autonomy, and it's because it's about the woman's comfort, because
Yes.
it's a very personal exam. You have to have a trusting relationship with your doctor. Same with the obstetrician. You know, some men will get really defensive about if the doctor is, you know, a man and he's handsome, and so he'll want her to go to a woman, or he'll be worried about a man looking at his woman's stuff.
I think he's got a
And
right
so,
to express his opinions to her. If he has some fears about, you know, honey, I don't want a guy seeing you down there, he has a right to express it, and she has a right to show some empathy for his, and they'll make a decision together. But insisting and controlling, that's a different.
No,
Well,
no,
but
controlling
a
like
lot-
that is just...
And it comes up in a lot of other areas as well. Massage therapists. Will men say, no, 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 honey, you can't go see a guy massage therapist, or vice versa?
As far as professional athletes, they tend to stick with the same gender for training. If it's a professional, a male with a male, female with a female. But there's more women that are going to trainers. So
So would you
What
feel
would you
uncomfortable if your
I've
wife...
been trained by both.
But if your wife was getting a little personal training by a really big buff guy who... No,
Well,
no,
she
he like
stretches
squat
her
further.
right out,
No, no, no. Get in your tush there, honey. Like, would that bother you?
Well, if he got her tush a little tighter, we'd all benefit. So I mean, it's all good.
Well, relationships do grow. Relationships also involve compromise. But what do you think of this?
When a wife asks, does this make me look fat? Can a husband be honest?
No,
So is honesty always the best policy? You're saying that it's not.
no. No.
Well, here's how he should be honest. He should say, that's an unfair question for me because you always look beautiful to me.
There you go. Oh, that's right. That's right.
That's honest.
And then she replies with, okay, I always look beautiful to you, but do I look beautiful fat in this dress? Meaning, tell me, what do you say?
Well,
Yeah.
you said, what do you think? I mean, you look at yourself. I mean, if you don't like it, maybe try something else. But don't say she looks...
Never. You should never, you should never in a relationship, whether it's your spouse, your kids, your parents, you should never say you look fat, ever.
But what if you actually had a partner who was overweight and you wanted to figure out how to help that partner get healthy? I mean, you do have to sort of broach that, you know, bridge to help your partner go in the right direction. Yeah.
there you have to finesse that and say, yeah, you know, maybe you should lose a little bit.
It's all in semantics, and there's it's when you look at people who are obese, for instance, again, whether it's a child or a spouse, it's all about semantics. And if you say, yes, you look fat in that,
but Travis, I gotta say, anybody who needs to lose a few pounds knows it. Telling them or even suggesting, really?
Oh, absolutely. I will have patients who come to me and they have no idea that they're in an unhealthy weight range.
Okay, so for you as a professional,
3% of women who are overweight don't think they're overweight. 48% of men, that's almost half of men who are overweight, don't think they are.
Giving somebody tips, like behavioral tips, you need to exercise more, you need to eat less, really doesn't help them. Telling them you love them, you care about them, you want them to be around a long time and live a long, healthy life are the kinds of thoughts that go to the higher thinking in them and help them lose weight. But criticizing them and telling them fat never works. No.
How about I set you up with a sexy, hot trainer at the gym? You're going to want to go see this one.
Who gives a great massage?
Yeah, exactly.
Let's take a look at this scenario.
Should a spouse always provide sex when the other partner wants it?
Boy, now that would be a perfect world.
I heard a few yeses out here.
But I don't want it to happen.
I'm sure there are more guys who say yes to this question, but my answer is a firm no. It's so dangerous if you haven't worked out your relationship issues to try to engage in sex. Imagine if one partner is angry about something. The sex can be downright dangerous, okay? Seriously.
Well, that
sex
might be
is an expression of, it could be fun. But sex is an expression of intimacy and communication, so you've got to get your relationship stuff out of the way.
And yes, I agree. Sex is absolutely an expression of love, and it always should be. But these are controversies every couple deals with. We have some folks up front here. I want to ask you all, you're great-looking couples. Any thoughts? You know, do you ever tell your spouse you look fat in that? Is it okay to expect sex at any time? What do you guys think?
You have to take into consideration that if you haven't had relations for a little while, that maybe, how you want to say it, you can throw them one once in a while, you know?
Will you give a guy a break? Been there.
You know, it's a fair. What do you think about that, ladies? And it could go either way, because sometimes couples go very long period of time, months, without having sex.
Sexless marriages are way on the rise, so it can become a real problem.
We also have to be careful about saying that a sexless marriage is completely all bad. Some people like to, some people don't. It doesn't mean the relationship's dead.
But everybody's different, and you have to talk it over.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to know where your mate is, what page they're on, because like you said, if you're in need, you have to let that be known.
Or you get a really good tennis pro to come.
But there is some great medical takeaway. We always talk about couples that have sex a couple of times a week, less likely to have heart disease.
Yes.
So there is actually some sexual health benefits to having regular sex.
And self-image benefits. You know, if you feel good about yourself and your body and your sexual relationship, you're going to feel better about yourself.
Right now, I want everyone to take a look at this image. Different people see different things. We're going to tell you what that says about you when we come back.
Coming up.
Men and women are different. Our brains are different. This is what a man might see. He's going to focus in on the two women, and everything else around sort of fades out. Whereas a woman might see this.
That's right.
She's seen the entire visual field, maybe not as focused on the two women in front.
And later.
Took 5 wrong turns, gave up on the first location, and the producers had to take you there. So, can I say, Ginger, that the men won this one?
No.
Audience is full of couples today because we're revealing everything you need to know about the opposite sex. And before the break, we showed you this image. So raise your hand if you saw the profile of an old woman. Okay, now raise your hand if you saw a young woman. The majority of the audience saw a young woman. And interestingly, most men will see the young woman while most women will see the older woman. The reason? To see the older woman requires more attention to visual detail In general, women's vision is more specialized for seeing more than meets the eye. And I want to highlight this for everyone, because I have to confess.
I don't see the old woman.
Let me show it to you, because I saw the young woman at first. So young woman, eye, nose, you see that? Chin.
She's looking away.
Nice little hat here with a feather. But the older woman, if you can see, this is her nose, this is her mouth, this is her chin.
She looks like that
now
old
I
granny
see it.
picture.
Yeah.
But
Now I see it.
it took me a while to see the older
Yeah, now I see it.
woman in that picture.
I showed it to both my kids, who are girls, and they saw the older woman right away.
Really?
Yeah, they were able to see both easily.
Wow.
So you must have,
My
that's the
eyes
other
did-
thing about gender. You know, Dr. Lisa had trouble seeing it for a while, and she's a girl, is that gender isn't a hard and fast thing. It's not like you can always say, well, guys see this, or women see this, or guys do that, or women do that, because we're all kind of a blend, but you can get a general idea sometimes.
But it's why it's fun to talk today about not only gender stereotypes, but what does make each of us different. But again, these are not hard and fast rules, right?
But our brains are different. Now, ladies, let's see if you've ever found yourselves in this situation.
Honey, would you mind going to the grocery store for me today?
Yes, dear.
Okay, so we're gonna need a gallon of milk.
Oranges, apples.
And remember, get red because they hate white. Bill, are you listening?
Yes, of course, dear. I was listening.
Great. You should make a list so you don't forget.
Why, oh why don't men listen? Before we get into some of the reasons, let's first look at the brain, because the brain does dictate a lot of our differences. Men's brains, it's a little bit bigger than a woman's brain.
But that doesn't mean
Wait
it's
a
not
Size means nothing.
Yeah,
Size
exactly.
means nothing. It's not correlated with intelligence, everybody.
So
okay?
bigger head doesn't mean smarter?
Well, proportionately, men are a little bigger, so it makes sense.
Yeah, exactly.
bigger body, bigger
Proportionately to the body.
In body size. But what's different, though, is the hemisphere. In general, and again, we're making generalities here, men tend to use their left side of their brain more than their right side. And the left side is more correlated with math and logistics and things like that, whereas the right side is more creative, intuitive, art, those type of things.
Spatial
and that's why
reasoning, athletics.
Yes, that's why it's associated with that women use the right side more than men.
So why don't men listen?
Men don't have as much of a verbal capacity as women do. So,
well, wait a
It's
second.
that right brain dominance. Verbiage comes from the left brain.
This is where I come in. I did my homework last night. Okay, we do have the same centers. However, though, and the science is there, that when men hear a woman's voice, they don't process it the same way as when they hear a male's voice. When we process a woman's voice, instead of going to our communication center, it's going to our music center. So when you're talking to, I guess we're hearing a rap or
hearing music.
It's background music.
Then why do they have all those hottie news anchors if you guys aren't listening to beautiful women?
We're not listening, we're looking.
It's all about ratings. Part of the takeaway here is men's brains aren't changing, so you have to get his attention. If you want to be heard, get his attention, because he really may mean it when he says, I didn't hear you. Even if he's trying to listen, if he's watching the game, he's not going to hear you. Sometimes if we get distracted, we can't multitask. So the other thing for men out there is give your woman your attention. When she's talking to you, focus on her. You can avoid a lot of problems.
Oh,
big time.
Very, very smart and very, very wise as a man. Listen to other men.
Yeah, women want our emotional needs taken care of.
I will say one of the best things about the DVR now is you can pause SportsCenter. Pause it. Yes, honey. Focus. Is that all you needed? Thank you, honey.
All right.
Play.
Well,
Put
now
that newspaper down for a
we're going to
second.
move on to another topic. Women, have you ever found yourself in this situation? Take a look.
Mayo, bologna, yes, and lettuce, awesome, mustard.
again.
I just bought some.
Thank you.
They really can't say things.
No, they can't.
I heard that happens all the time.
Well, but also a lot of times, just to give you guys a break, a lot of times we, organize everything.
You move our stuff.
And we move the stuff. So in your defense, that can sometimes be our fault. But scientifically, there is a reason for that. Women have more of that 180-degree peripheral vision, so we are more cognizant of what is going on around us.
We all have Wayne Gretzky vision.
Yes,
we all
exactly.
have Wayne Gretzky vision. We see that puck coming, you guys. All right.
And even in electrical activity, they've shown resting, men only have 30%, whereas women have 70%. So we are just way more observant.
70% visual fields?
No. Well, what's going on in the electrical stimuli in the brain?
We do better looking at things from a distance, for example, night driving.
Guys are great night drivers.
Being able to spot things at a distance and to differentiate.
But women are less likely to have a side collision because we see that car coming.
Well,
that's true.
But not close up. For example, a woman is going to pick out that piece of lint here, but it's not going to see the car behind her that she's going to back into.
And we're going to talk about this at length, but just to give you an we're going to talk about this at length, but to give you an idea of what we're talking about, just look at these two pictures, because this is what a man might see. He's going to focus in on the two women, and everything else around sort of fades out. Whereas a woman might see this.
That's right.
She's seen the entire visual field, maybe not as focused on the two women in front. And this does affect your driving, like you said. We're going to talk about that in just a minute. But in the end, we just have to acknowledge men and women are different. Our brains are different. So that's why we're teaching you today how to understand one another. And then coming up, we're all riding shotgun with one couple who's determined to settle the score on this one thing once and for all. You won't believe what happened when we took it to the streets. Next.
I am a better driver than Scott because I am a female. Hey, Turbo, you go from being an old man to NASCAR?
This happened 2 weeks ago.
Oops.
Today it's all about how we can better understand the opposite sex. And right now we're about to try and make an attempt to understand women. Now, Scott's been happily married to Ginger for 12 years, but says she's got one annoying quirk that's literally driving him crazy.
Hi, doctors. My wife Ginger and I agree on most things, but in our family, I am definitely the better driver.
No. I am a better driver than Scott because I am a female.
You sexist. She tells me which way to go, what lane to get in, how fast to go.
Hey, Turbo.
What?
You go from being an old man to NASCAR? Old man, both hands on the steering wheel.
Since we've been married, how many documented accidents have you had?
4.
How many have I had?
Shut up.
We have spent a lot of money on getting cars fixed. This happened 2 weeks ago.
Oops.
I would be interested to know why it is that women aren't as skilled drivers as men are.
Watch it, buddy. I'm still the better driver.
Well, Ginger's integrity was clearly on the line here, so we invited both of them to participate in a little driving experiment. So they were each judged in 3 areas of driving and navigation. This is what happened.
Your challenge is to look at the surroundings and point to where north is. North is that way. Your challenge is to go from where you are now to the star on the map. Your journey will be timed. My gut's telling me I need to go west. Right turn only. Does that mean I can't go into that street? I went exactly the wrong direction. This is where my wife says I drive like an old man. We're here. I'm done. I'm here.
All right. north. That's north. It's this star. Where's the star? Oh, there's the star. All right. Okay, this is where it gets embarrassing. Oh my God. Ah, crap. Tell me I'm close. I don't think I'm where I'm supposed to be at all. All right. I give. I give. There?
Can I say, Ginger, Lisa, Wendy, that the men won this one?
No.
Whoa. You gotta give us something. You spent the whole last segment telling me how dumb men are and how we're not as smart and we don't think.
We have to be better at something.
Come on, we have to be better at something.
Does not speak for all women, and it could have been a bad day.
Drivers.
You know?
Come on.
And I didn't have my glasses.
And she, her glasses.
Did you see me leaning up? I couldn't see any of the signs.
Exactly. They should
This
have
is
even...
an example of one man who happens to be a better driver than his wife. But the truth is, men get in far more accidents than women because they drive more aggressively.
Right.
So we're not talking about safe versus unsafe. I actually agree with you. Men are more unsafe drivers.
The number is actually 77% or higher risk of getting into deathly accidents and actually 3 times more likely to get a reckless driving ticket. So I'd rather take longer to get there with Ginger
and have a fender
than not die.
Boy, I can relate to Scott and Ginger. You two are just like my wife and I. And she says, I'm the best driver. I'm a better driver. I'm such a good driver. No question, she's a safer driver, a more patient driver. But I think more easily distracted. And, you know, the studies have shown that men just do better spatially. For example, when we're doing the parallel parking, the studies show that women are more likely to get hit or hit somebody when they're parallel parking than men.
And it does go back to what you said earlier. You said that men tend to use the left side of their brain.
It's totally
which
about
is
left
more
side. And that's where the map reading comes in. Ginger, I'm sorry, but you didn't do too well on that part.
You took 5 wrong turns, gave up on the first location, and the producers had to take you there.
Yes, but I was only a third.
That's why you got an F. And Ginger in particular, we want to make sure that you find your way home from the show. So we're actually going to send both of you home with a TomTom GPS system. So no more getting lost. Thank you both so much. And coming up, with the help of cutting-edge 3D brain technology, you may be able to understand what really makes men and women tick. We'll show you how after the break.
3 minutes into the test, I'll cut into a Ceratec. It's a radioactive pharmaceutical. It goes through the IV, and that's what's actually going to show the blood flow as you work on the test. So the scan goes about 20 to 25 minutes.
What we discovered is fascinating.
Guests Corey and Patrick say they're like a lot of couples out there. He's logical, she's emotional. It's driving them both a little crazy. So with the help of a cutting-edge technology, we actually have the ability to go inside the human brain like never before and hopefully make sense of it all.
Today I'm going to meet Corey and Patrick, and we're going to do brain studies on them.
Corey's pretty much my polar opposite in how we deal with our emotions.
If I feel something, you know it. You know it. Everybody knows it. The guy next to me on the bus knows it.
We're going to do a study called SPEC that looks at blood flow and activity patterns in their brain. I'm hoping to shed some light on how the brains actually work in this very interesting couple.
Okay, let me tell you what we're going to do. It's called a concentration brain scan. This is going to look at the blood flow to the brain as you work on the test. You're going to take a test on the computer. You will see letters of the alphabet flash on the screen one at a time. You are to quickly press the space bar every time you see a letter, unless that letter's an X. Got it?
Hit the space bar unless it's an X.
3 minutes into the test, I'll cut into a Seratech. It's a radioactive pharmaceutical. Goes through the IV. That's what's actually going to show the blood flow as you work on the test. Will not hurt or make you feel any different. Test goes on 10 more minutes. Seratech's depositing as you're working away. Test is over. We're going to scan. Scan goes about 20 to 25 minutes. If you hold still, you're done. If you move your head, I start over from the beginning.
I'm hoping to learn to better understand how we're different.
So your scans are endlessly interesting.
We're thrilled.
I'm pretty excited.
What we discovered is fascinating.
Author of Change Your Brain, Change Your Body, Dr. Daniel Amen is here today along with Corey and Patrick. Welcome to all of you. And you two don't know the results of your scans yet? So you are excited?
Yeah.
Thrilled. And let's talk, Dr. Amen, really quickly about how you're using this technology, and then we have some scans we're going to look at here.
So SPECT looks at blood flow and activity. It looks at how your brain works. It's different than a CAT scan or an MRI. Those are anatomy studies. SPECT looks at function, and it's pretty easy to understand because we look for areas of the brain that work well, areas of the brain that are low in activity, and areas of the brain that are high in activity. And we use it for things like traumatic brain injury, for complicated cases of anxiety and depression, for violence. And we've had a very interesting study going on we call the Couples from Hell study, where we have scanned 500 couples who failed marital therapy and still wanted to be together.
So we have different images of your scans. So let's talk about first the interior scans as these pop up. What are we looking at here?
So the top row is Patrick's scan, the bottom row is Corey's scan, and we're looking at the inside of the brain, and here is how active it is. And what we see is that Corey's scan is a whole bunch more active than Patrick's scan. And that's often what we see in the difference between male and female brains, is her brain's working, she's thinking, and we just sort of want to be left alone.
But I'm curious, does this affect treatment, knowing these different areas are working and how?
Well, once you get a scan on someone, you can then target treatment specifically to their brain. So, for example, if somebody has depression, you know, we think, oh, we'll give them a serotonin drug. But what we found is they're not good for everyone. And if we know your pattern, we can target treatment specifically to you, which is very exciting.
Yeah.
And let's look, we have some surface scans of their brains as well. What do we see in here?
So here we're looking underneath the brain. And in a healthy scan, it's full, even, symmetrical activity. If we look at Patrick's brain on the top left, go about halfway down, and those are his temporal lobes. And they're really low in activity, almost have like a moth-eaten look. And when Patrick was young, when Patrick was young, he had viral encephalitis. And that probably had an impact, and he's been struggling with headaches for many, many years. You can imagine if someone has a lot of headaches in relationships, it has a very stressful impact on the relationship. So on the outside, and it's sort of typical, men have less activity, women have a lot more. But in this particular case, it helps us to target in and help him with something that has been painful for him and then subsequently for his wife for a long time. So there's a treatment called neurofeedback, where they can actually put electrodes right near that area and teach you how to stabilize the function. I think for you, we want to calm yours down a little bit. And some natural treatments to boost serotonin can be ever so helpful. Target that area. So exercise, healthy carbs.
And this is one more way that people can learn to understand their spouses better. Thank you so very much for joining us. Coming up, Dr. Sears joins us to shed some light on some of the his and hers questions that parents have, so stay with us. Understanding the opposite sex is one thing, but raising girls and boys can often be confusing for parents. That's why Dr. Sears is about to put your fears to rest. And we have Monica on the line with a question for Dr. Sears. Monica, what's going on?
Hi, doctors. How are you?
Hey, Monica. Pretty good.
Okay, so I have a 12-year-old daughter, a 2-year-old son, and one on the way. And when she was being potty trained, my oldest was being potty trained, we found it to be pretty easy for her. And now that it's my son's turn, it's a little more complicated. Is it normal? Are boys just slower at being potty trained than girls?
Oh, yeah.
Slower at a few things,
Well,
Monica.
yeah. You girls are going to like to hear this. But, yeah, boys are slower at a lot of things. Potty training, walking, talking, multitasking, paying attention.
Thank goodness we're better drivers.
Yeah. But there's a couple of things you should do. Here's a few do's and don'ts when it comes to potty training, especially boys. Is first off, you want to encourage them, but never pressure them. The next thing is you want to look for ready signs. You want to make sure the little guy is ready. Is he showing interest? Does he watch dad use the potty? You know, watch, okay, it goes into the potty. And if he's showing interest, talking about it, that's a ready sign. Also, if he has body awareness, does he realize that he's gone? Is he telling you that he's wet? Or does he get that look when he's about to go? And if he's showing those signs, then maybe he's ready. And then there's a few strategies that I used with my boys that work a little better. Is first off, some sort of incentive. My son, we know he could do it. He just wasn't quite ready, but he needed the right incentive. So we went to the store and we bought, he picked out a really cool toy that he really wanted, but it stayed in the box. And then that toy got set on the back of the toilet. And we told him, as soon as you finally go pee-pee in the potty, he gets the toy. And that toy sat there for probably a week or two, and he would look at it, and, oh, I'm not quite ready. And it was so fun to watch him go. And, you know, and then finally Mom, Dad, I went pee-pee in the potty, I get my toy. And then that kind of got him over the hump. Two other great things that help with boys. Sometimes boys are just too busy. They're playing. They don't realize they have to go until it's too late. But set an oven timer to have it go off every 2 hours. You know, ding, ding, ding. Oh, potty time, and you go. Or make a game out of it. Get something called, you know, you can put something in a potty, whether it's, you know, popcorn or Cheerios or something, and you can do target practice. There's even something actually called tickle targets, and you can buy them.
We had those, I know some grown men who need some target practice.
But there's one golden rule that you need to follow with potty training, and that is never punish your child for having an accident. Because, you know, he's gone into his diaper his whole life, and to ask him to do something different is quite a big step. And if you just punish him, that stresses him out, lots of anxiety around the situation, and it could really postpone the potty training.
Okay.
Good stuff. Thanks, Monica, for joining us.
Thank you so much for helping me out. I think we'll get it this time.
Good stuff. All right, this is an email from Kirsten in Little Rock who writes, Dear doctors, my only son is 13 and his voice is starting to change. It got me thinking, why does this happen to boys but not the girls?
Well, you know, when you hit that growth spurt, the testosterone surges and everything starts to grow, including the voice box or larynx. And here's a little model of one. And as it lengthens, you get that Adam's apple. It protrudes from the neck. And the vocal cords are stretched across that cartilage is there. And the longer they are, the deeper a voice you have. Kind of like the longer piano strings are deeper than the shorter piano strings.
Never knew that.
And when you go through that really rapid phase of growth, they lengthen so quickly. You get that cracking to your voice, but that goes away.
Yeah, and it actually does happen to girls too, but in a lot, you know, it's more subtle. And it's because it deepens a couple tones, but more subtle because it's more about estrogen and a little bit of testosterone, but it does actually happen to girls, but it's more of a male thing with the testosterone. That's why it's so much more noticeable in boys.
Yep. Thank you, docs. Coming up, the real reason a woman's metabolism is slower than a man's, plus the secret to cracking the female weight loss code for good. I don't know about all of you, but I've learned quite a bit over the last hour. What makes men and women tick. And I do want to thank all of our couples that came out today. Now, human touch, one of the most important ways that you can bond and stay connected with your partner. So we wanted all of our couples here to spend a little more time getting cozier. So redenvelope.com is giving everyone his and hers personalized, it's a personalized gift of Long Johns. And in fact, PJs. So everyone, you're getting this. Plus, Dr. Daniel Amen is sending everyone home with a copy of his book, Change Your Brain, Change Your Body.
Nice.
Certainly didn't forget about you. Find out how you can win a copy of the book and get your own pair of his and hers PJs by going to thedoctorstv.com. So my doctor's orders, not only should you snuggle up this winter with your loved one, but make sure you appreciate and celebrate our differences. Those are doctor's orders. Thanks for being with us.